This is how imperialism destroyed the Roman Republic. We first need to understand the bedrock of this society. It was the farmer soldier. They were brilliant, they were economically self-sufficient and thus proved to be moderate voters. They had a real interest in preserving the system, for the preservation of their land, liberty and livelihood depended upon the state recognizing and enforcing their property rights. So vested they were in the system, every few summers or so they would volunteer to fight in the legions to protect their farms and preserve the state from barbarian invaders, and in return the state would protect their property and liberty from a tyrant who might threaten to take it away. This symbiotic relationship was so important, only farmers were allowed to be in the legions, and thus this was the social contract that made the entire system tick. However, as Rome started expanding, particularly during the Punic and the Roman-Greek wars of the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC, these citizen farmers were no longer out on campaign for a few weeks or months, for they could be thousands of miles away from their farms for years on end. This resulted with all these family-owned farms falling into ruin. At the same time, huge civilizations were being conquered and colonized by these legions. The single city of Carthage, for example, when it was conquered and sacked in 146 BC, 50,000 Carthaginians were enslaved. The very same year, the city of Corinth was also taken. Perhaps 250,000 Greeks were enslaved during this time. These are unfathomable numbers. And let's also remember all the money that was won from these conquests. They went mainly to the senatorial and equite, so the business class. So what happened when you had tons of dilapidated farms owned by cash-strapped soldier farmers and a new world full of unfathomably rich people and slaves? Well, the soldiers would simply sell their farms to the newly rich, who would then populate them with slaves. These poor landless plebeians now swarmed into Rome in search for work, causing a huge swelling of the urban poor. These once productive and loyal people were now a destitute and dispossessed class, looking for the next government handout from the next demagogue, causing ever-greatening political instability. Meanwhile, out on the borders of the ever-expanding empire, more and more legions were needed, but at the same time there were less and less farmer soldiers to draw upon, causing a massive shortfall in legionaries. The solution was obvious: land redistribution. Return the urban poor back onto the farms, turn them back into farmer soldiers, but this would be against the immediate interests of the rich, whose wealth was now based upon these huge slave-run estates bought using the money from the conquest. And in an environment full of demagogues and political extremism, this caused deadlock throughout the Roman political system. But no worries, because every crisis is an opportunity, a chance to discard the traditional well-established norms with little oversight. And oh my, Rome would soon have a lot of crises. The social war, Mithridates, Spartacus, Jugurtha. To save the Roman Republic, the virtuous elite would simply hire the idle urban poor as soldiers out of their own pocket. It was a short-term solution that would have disastrous long-term effects, for remember, the legions of old were motivated to fight to defend their own farmland and the republic that protected it. What are these landless poor fighting for? For money. Who do they owe their loyalty to? The commander who can guarantee their pay. In addition to this, we need to remember that the Republic was originally designed to represent a small city-state, and now the majority of the people in the empire had no say in their governing power. Most people had no loyalty to the Republic, and the ones who could vote, because of the upheaval of the social order, became ever more extreme and polarized. This saw massive mistrust and deadlock in the political system, where well-needed and good reforms couldn't pass because nobody wanted to let their political competitors have all the credit and the glory. And backed by private armies, this would result with civil war after civil war and violent purges until the last and the baddest and the meanest warlord remained, and that man was Octavian. It was truly a zero-sum game. And thus, although the expansion of the Roman state brought it glory, riches and a place in the history books, it would prove to be the death of the people's liberty. Thanks for watching.